My name is Sheldon Smith James, but everyone calls me Shell or Shelly. I had a nickname back in high school. They called me Rare James. That meant I rarely had sex. In fact, I never had sex in high school because I was so shy and skinny that I hardly ever dated anyone. The nickname fell away after I returned from the U.S. Army and began guarding our shores from foreign invaders. But come to think of it, weren't we the invaders? Anyway, I came back a couple inches taller and added 25 pounds of muscle. I fit nicely, and I'd also gained a few pounds of metal on my chest, so I attracted a lot more female attention. As far as I could tell, the metal was mostly to keep me from getting killed, which, judging by where I was, wasn't that hard. I'm currently sitting in one of the many local drinking establishments in our town called the Tiger Bar. You know the kind of place I'm talking about. It's dark and dingy, and the establishment has the smells of mold, vomit, alcohol, and sweat. The men's room smells even worse. It has little Target-type air fresheners at the bottom of the dirty urinals with a picture of Jane Fonda, nicknamed Hanoi Jane, smiling at you. The walls are papered with all sorts of stuff, from pictures of people who died back in the last century to advertisements for things you've never heard of. Everything looks like it hasn't been updated in 40, 50 years. It's 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and there are 3 other people in the establishment besides me. One of them is the bartender, and the other 2 are old drunks sleeping rough. This place is a real shithole, and it fits my current state of mind just fine. I just came from my lawyer's office. He gave me the bad news about what my life would be like if I filed for divorce from Meredith, my wife of 15 years. Sometimes I could get away with calling her Mere, but she preferred to be called Meredith. Yesterday, I discovered that Meredith was cheating on me. It seems like she's been doing it for a long time. So I have 2 things to find out. First, were there warning signs that I missed that should have told me what was going on? And second, what the hell am I supposed to do about it now? Before I delve into this topic, I should briefly tell you about Meredith and me. We met about a year after I got out of the sandbox. I was working at an auto repair shop as a wrench twirler. Meredith Smith's car broke down, and when she came into the shop and I saw her, I immediately fell in love. Less than a year later, we were married. I now own the place where I used to work, which I cleverly renamed Shelley's Auto Repair. It may not have been much, but I was making a decent living. It was enough to keep our 2 kids, James, age 12, and Mary, age 10, fed and clothed. We even had a couple bucks in the bank and a mortgage on a small house we owned. Of course, if I were honest, I'd say we couldn't have gotten by on my income alone. Meredith had a degree in graphic arts. She worked at an advertising agency in the city and made almost as much as I did. All in all, I thought we were happy. Honestly, until I discovered she was unfaithful, I thought we were happy beyond belief. If quality sex was any indication, we were happier than the planet Mars. Honestly, I don't think our sex life has slowed down one bit in the last 15 years. What's more, it's gotten much better. Sex is no different than most other activities. The more you do it, the better you get at it. She wasn't a virgin when we got married, but neither was I. Meredith is up for just about anything sexually. She always wants to try new things and often asks me if there's something new I'd like to try or something I'd like her to do better. Meredith likes it when I start showering her with butterfly-like kisses all over her body to get her started. Sometimes after I start, she tells me, "No, big boy, tonight is all up to you." She pushes me onto my back, and at that point, I'm just a passenger. It's just fantastic. As I sat at the bar feeling sorry for myself and contemplating my next steps, I noticed the lyrics to a song playing on the bar's crappy sound system and listened. I'm a bitch. I'm a lover. I'm a child. I'm a mother. I'm a sinner. I'm a saint. I'm not ashamed. I'm your hell. I'm your dream. I'm nothing in between. I shut down and started thinking about my problems, but those words kept slipping through my head over and over again. I wondered what the song was about. I turned to the bartender, I think he was starting to fall asleep too, and asked him what was the name of the song that was playing. He replied, "It's called Bitch, and it's by Meredith Brooks." I laughed sardonically and thought, quite fitting. I asked him for more scotch. He nodded and followed it. What am I doing drinking this shit? What kind of bar is this that doesn't even have Glenlivet, or at least Chivas? Jesus, what a dump! When my thoughts didn't return to the lyrics of the song, I started thinking more about my problems and what I should do. There was no way I was wrong about her cheating. I had seen it with my own eyes. Well, almost with my own eyes. I usually personally test drive every customer car we work on. When I'm satisfied with our work, the client comes to pick up the car. A couple days ago, we worked on this elderly lady's Crown Victoria. She looked like Mrs. Doubtfire. I don't know how she handled that old beast, but there was no way I was going to let her drive it off my property. I was too worried she'd destroy half the cars before she got to the street. So I told her that when the car was ready, we would bring it to her house and she could pay us there. She was very grateful. I asked one of my boys, Hector, to follow me in his car, and when I got to Mrs. Doubtfire's house, I pulled into her driveway on Saranac Doctor and Hector parked on the street. It was one of those old World War II bungalows with big porches. I noticed next to it a Ford Explorer, the same color as Meredith's. A little old lady was waiting on the porch when I approached her. As we were completing the transaction, I looked up at the neighbor's porch and almost dropped everything I was holding. Meredith came out of the front door with some jerk and showered the guy with hot kisses. Mrs. Doubtfire said, "That's Jack's girlfriend. I've only seen her a few times. Isn't she pretty?" Through clenched teeth, I replied, "Yes, she's gorgeous." Mrs. Doubtfire was simply overwhelmed with information because she added, "When she's here, I start blushing because they talk really loud." I was so disgusted that I could barely get out, "Really?" My voice was full of sarcasm. "I know what sex is, young man. You young men didn't invent it, you know." I couldn't help myself, chuckled, and asked if we could go inside to finish the paperwork. I wanted to get inside before Meredith saw me. There was no way I was ready for a confrontation at that moment. A couple minutes later, I heard her Explorer start and pull away. Hector buried his head in his iPhone as I opened his car door. I used to think driverless cars were a bad idea, but with these kids and their electronics, they were probably just necessary. Hector looked at me and said, "What's the matter, boss? Are you as pale as a ghost? Did the old lady pay you in coins?" He laughed heartily at his joke. Hector always laughed heartily. I just told him to take us back to the store and didn't say another word the whole way. I finished my day and headed home. I really needed to think things over before I ran into Meredith, so I tried to act normal when I walked into the house. She heard me come in, and without seeing me, Meredith chimed in, "Hi, baby. I really missed you today. Dinner's almost ready." When she turned around and saw me, she exclaimed, "Oh my God, Shell! What happened? You look terrible!" I ate something bad. I think I'll skip dinner and go straight to bed. I climbed the stairs, said goodnight to the kids, and went to bed. Pretty smooth on my part, don't you think? The next morning, I went to work early before everyone was even up. I found a lawyer and made an appointment for the afternoon. I wasn't in a good mood, so all the guys left me alone. I told everyone I was leaving after lunch. They didn't argue because I'm sure they wanted me as far away from them as possible. I would have to apologize later. I met with a lawyer and got some bad news. Since I opened my business after the wedding, Meredith would get half. She will get the house until the kids turn 18 and I will get the mortgage. She gets custody of the kids and I get to be a part-time dad and pay a lot of child support. See how everything is split 50-50ths in the no-fault state? Meredith could cheat with the entire 4th Infantry Division, and it wouldn't mean a thing. There was one bright spot, though. Since our incomes were about the same, I'd probably only have to pay a nominal amount of spousal support. That's how I ended up on the bar stool in this hole-in-the-wall bar, drinking crappy scotch, watching the sleeping drunks, and listening to that damn song. I still didn't know what I was going to do, but I realized I couldn't face Meredith without losing my mind. I had to think this through. So I pulled out my phone and sent 2 texts. The first was addressed to Julie, my office manager. Basically, I informed her that I would be gone until Monday and could not be contacted until then. She could run the business until I returned. I've never done this before, so this should cause a flurry of activity. The second message was addressed to Meredith. It simply stated, "I'm going away for a few days. I need some time to think. Please don't try to contact me. Tell James and Mary I love them and I'm sorry." And I immediately disconnected my phone. In the kind of business I run, you always need to carry a lot of cash on you. I looked in my wallet and there was over $1,000 in it. I would be staying for a few days. I needed to find an inexpensive motel, buy toiletries, underwear, and a few other things, and I'd be set. I spotted a motel across the parking lot from the Tiger Bar. It didn't look any better than this place, but it had to fit. So I got up from the bar stool, tossed a couple 20s on the bar for a drink, nodded to the bartender, thanking him, and headed out. I would have loved to stop at a better place, but then they'd ask for a credit card to pay for incidentals, and that meant someone might discover me. Perhaps it was paranoia on my part, but I knew that the motel was cash only and didn't care how many John Smiths were registered. Meanwhile, around the same time, Meredith James checked her messages and was stunned to see a message from Shell. "Oh my God, what happened?" she said out loud. She quickly tried to call, but Shell's phone went straight to voicemail. She texted him, "Shell, you're freaking me out. What's wrong? Call me, please." Maybe something terrible happened at work, she thought, and decided to call Julie. Julie and Meredith were close friends. Maybe she could tell her what had happened. When Julie picked up the phone, Meredith practically screamed at her. "Julie, what's going on, Shell? Did someone get hurt?" "Meredith, I don't know what's going on. I just got a very strange text from Shell saying that he's out until Monday and unavailable. He told me to do everything myself. Can you believe that?" Meredith began to feel a horrible feeling in her stomach. "Has anything unusual happened?" "The only thing I can think of, Meredith, is that yesterday Shell asked Hector to go get him to deliver a client's car, and when they returned, Shelley was completely different. It was like he was in a daze, and this morning he was a real bear, told everyone he was leaving and then sent a text. And I don't know, Julie, something is really wrong. Did Hector say anything?" "Well, I overheard the guys picking on Hector. They thought he was to blame for Shell's mood. Hector said he didn't do anything. Hector told them that they had abandoned a customer's car outside a house on Saranac Doctor and—" Julie was still talking, but Meredith had already passed out. Meredith regained consciousness as James and Mary were shaking her. They were beating hysterically, and she immediately went back into mother mode. They needed to finish their homework, feed them dinner, and get them ready for school tomorrow. At least it was Friday, and she'd have time over the weekend to think about how to mitigate the damage she'd done. After putting the kids to bed, she made arrangements with her folks to keep the kids for the weekend. This was easy to do because James and Mary loved spending time being pampered by her in-laws, who loved their grandchildren more than anything. As she put them to bed, she told them that their father had to leave for a few days for work. It didn't make sense since Shell was home every night, but they were young enough to believe it and were looking forward to the weekend. Before going to bed, Meredith tried to leave another voicemail, but Shell's answering machine was full. So she sent him another message. It read, "Shell, I know you saw me yesterday. I'm sorry you had to find out this way. If you don't want to talk to me, please text me, just so I know you're still alive. You probably won't believe me, but I love you more than life." Sitting on my bed trying to figure out what to do next, I decided to download Bitch so I could listen to the song in its entirety. Of course, I had to turn my phone back on, and it was flooded with messages from Meredith. I ignored the voicemails but read her last one. I sent a short reply that simply said, "I'm alive, but I don't want to talk yet. I'm in too much pain. Tell James and Mary I love them." I didn't realize I could be more hurt until I read Meredith's comment about her finding out this way. It made me think that maybe she was never the woman I thought she was. "I hate today's world. You're so good to me, I know, but I can't change. I've tried to tell you, but you look at me like I'm an angel underground. Innocent and sweet." Jesus Christ, did my wife really write that song? I can understand your confusion. I don't envy you because I have a little bit of everything in me. The only sensible thing I've done is stop drinking. My drinking wasn't going to help anything. I planned to be away from home for a few days to sort out my feelings, so in the morning when everyone left, I planned to go to the house to pack clothes. The kids were in school at 8 in the morning, and Meredith went straight to work. I tried to get some sleep, but it didn't come easily. I thought a lot about the time when we first got married. I always thought I'd have a marriage like my parents. You know, the working man who provides for the family and the mother stays home and raises the kids. But my marriage was never like that. In fact, before we got married, Meredith was afraid she was going to lose herself. She didn't want to be just a wife or a mother. She told me she wanted to make sure she retained her individuality. One of the points of our agreement was to keep both last names. Before we were married, I thought couples with hyphenated last names were a little odd. However, it made Meredith happy, and in the end, it meant nothing to me. As our marriage matured, I realized she was much more complicated than I was. Aren't all women? As for men, we stop developing when we are about 12 years old. We get fatter and hairier, but at 12, what you see stays with you for the rest of your life. She has always been interested in doing new things and visiting places she has never been. She is very outgoing and is constantly trying to push my comfort boundaries. When we would go out socially, Meredith would often flirt. But I always thought it was harmless. When a guy asked her to dance, she never asked my permission. It was either yes or no. If she wanted to dance, she would get up and go to the dance floor without even looking at me. On the other hand, I never once saw her do anything inappropriate. When she came back, she always gave me a quick kiss. I admit it bothered me at first, but after a while it started to seem normal to her. Maybe I should have paid more attention. Meredith also had male friends. I know I'm old-fashioned, but it seems to me that married people can't have friends of the opposite sex. It's one thing in a business environment, but Meredith told me once a month or so that she was going to lunch with a guy from work on Saturday. It bothered me at first, but she also often went on dates with one of her friends. And she always went to restaurants that we visited as a family. Hardly the habit of a cheater, is it? So accept me for who I am. It may mean you'll have to become a stronger man. Rest assured, when I start to make you nervous, I will go to extreme measures. Tomorrow I'll change, and today will mean nothing. Meredith really did make me nervous a lot of the time. She encouraged me to start my own business. In fact, it's unfair to call it my business. It belongs to her as much as it belongs to me. She got us a loan and convinced her parents to lend us some money so we could start the business. She also did the bookkeeping and ran the office until we could afford to hire Julie. Despite being pregnant with James, she worked in the store, changing oil, mounting tires, etc. She was the one who talked me into buying the lot next door so we could eventually expand the business. One day I told her that I never knew she liked doing auto repair, and she replied, "I really don't, but I love helping you. I'm willing to do anything for you." You must be relieved to see her softer side. I can understand how you could be so confused. The song kept popping into my head. I know everyone has a song stuck in their head from time to time, but this one was different. It was like the singer was speaking directly to me. But what was she trying to tell me? I still couldn't sleep, thinking more and more about our sex life. I would think that if she was cheating on me, our sex life must have suffered. One of the guys at work, who was recently divorced after finding out his wife had a lover, told me that he hadn't had sex with his wife for 4 months before he discovered her infidelity. But like I said, our sex life was fantastic. The only problem I saw was that Meredith sometimes wanted me to be very rough with her during sex. I always had a problem with that. I tried, but it wasn't the right way to treat my wife. She would say she wanted me to torture her, spank her, and things like that. She asked me why. When I came home from the store, I never pulled down her pants, bent her over the couch, or had her. I told her that was hard to do with 2 small children in the house. "I'm a bitch. I'm a lover. I'm a mother, and I have no shame." The clock read 2:35, and I still couldn't fall asleep. Meredith was a great mother. Our friends joked that she was the professional mom in the neighborhood. But when she was pregnant with James, she was terrified. She didn't worry much about being a good mom. I, on the other hand, was terrified of being a good father. Meredith was afraid of losing herself. I would often catch her in tears on the couch, worried that I would only think of her as a mom. I would hug her, trying to comfort her as best I could. The only argument we had before the pregnancy was about her staying home. She told me she could never do that, and me, being a traditionalist, thought it was better for her to be home with the kids. My kids didn't have to go to daycare. I knew she would be a great mom, so I agreed to give it a try and see what happens. She agreed that if it didn't work out, she would find something else to do. With both children, Meredith worked right up until the day before she gave birth. She returned to work a few weeks later. She had no problem providing childcare for the children. She was a professional mom, and the kids seemed to thrive. She also helped me become a better father. She had me participate in their activities. She also made sure I had to take care of them when they were little. She used to tell me, Shelley, I know you won't like exploding diapers, vomiting, or incessant crying, but if you don't, you will regret it for the rest of your life. And there were many moments in my young life when I thought I had become a man, including my time abroad. But I knew the exact moment I became a man. One day I came home from work a little early because Meredith had left me a message that the daycare said James wasn't feeling well and she was on her way to pick him up. As I opened the door to the house, I heard the baby crying and Meredith sobbing in the nursery. I saw baby diarrhea in the hallway and kitchen. The baby's car seat was on the counter covered in crap. In short, it was a complete disaster. The thought occurred to me that if I just quietly turned around and left, no one would ever know I was here. But I couldn't. So I yelled, "Meredith, I'm home. I'm going to start cleaning up in here, and then I'll meet you in the baby's room." At that moment, I became a man. I think if this were just a story, Meredith would have been so grateful that she would have slept with me that night until I couldn't blink an eye. But what really happened was this. She fell asleep in my arms around 7:30. I put her to bed and got busy with baby James, who woke up 3 times during the night. I had a great relationship with my kids, and I know it was because of Meredith. You know you wouldn't want it any other way. Finally, I fell into a heavy sleep. The next morning, I drove to the house. After making sure no one was home, I went inside, packed my suitcase with my suits, and at the last minute grabbed the wedding book Meredith had put together. I know I'm being cranky, but I wanted her to know I was here. 30 minutes later, I was on the ground and on my way back to the Shangri-La Hotel. I kid you not, that's what it was called. On the way back, I stopped at Denny's for lunch. I hadn't eaten in over 24 hours, so I figured I'd better try to get something to eat. I risked being discovered because when we were first married, we spent a lot of time here. It was the only place we could afford. I have a lot of good memories with it. I ordered my food and started thinking about how Meredith could give up everything we had. We had been through so much, and she had just broken her marriage vows. I walked back to the car and pulled out a book. I opened the book because I knew that inside was a copy of each of our vows. My vows were the standard love, honor, and obey vows, but I remembered that she wanted to write her own. I found the card with her vows on it and read it. I, Meredith Smith, promise you the following from this day forward. I will laugh with you in joy and comfort you in sorrow. I will share your dreams and support you as you try to reach your goals. I will listen to you with compassion and understanding and speak to you with encouragement. I will stay true to these vows for better and for worse, in sickness and in health. You are my best friend, and I will love only you. I was shocked. She had never said she would be faithful to me, only that she would be true to her vows. Oh my God, she's been cheating on me our entire marriage. I never really knew her. I'm a sinner, I'm a saint, I'm not ashamed. I'm your hell, I'm your dream, and I'm nothing in between. What the hell am I supposed to do now? The stupid song plays in my head again. It might mean you'll have to become a stronger person. I thought about it for a few minutes and finally realized what was meant. I had made a decision. It was time to talk to her. I wasn't going to hide or play games anymore. If I never knew who she was, it was about damn time I found out. I called her cell phone. She answered right away and stated as if nothing had happened, "What do you need, Shell?" I'm sure she thought she would catch me off guard with her statement, which was very different from her previous pleading messages. I knew she was mad at me for hiding, and I knew she was right. But what she didn't know was that I was tired of being a victim. I want to talk to you. Meet me at Denny's tomorrow at 12:30 for lunch so we can decide what to do next. I replied just as calmly. You want to meet at the Denny's? Really? Said Meredith, clearly shocked. Yes, I'll see you tomorrow at 12:30. I quickly hung up. I got up, paid for my food, and headed back to my Fleabag motel. I threw myself on my bed and fell asleep like a baby, not waking up until 9:30 the next morning. I felt calm and rested as I prepared to meet Meredith at the restaurant. I was seated in a corner booth at about 12:25. Meredith showed up promptly at 12:30. I waved at her and she came over and sat across from me. I can't believe we're going to have this discussion at Denny's, she said in exasperation. Meredith, I chose this restaurant for 2 reasons. First, I believe our conversation might get a little heated, so I thought a public discussion would help us both keep things civil. She was about to say something, but I interrupted her by raising my hand and saying firmly, "Secondly, this is the restaurant we always ate at when we were dating and first married. We ate here often when we first started our business because it was all we could afford. In short, Meredith, we planned our lives here. We talked about everything. We talked about our fears, our dreams, everything. This is where we were when we decided to get married. But you know what we didn't talk about, Meredith?" No. She was clearly caught off guard and could only shake her head. "We didn't talk about the fact that you need sex with other men to feel whole. And that's because you never brought it up. You were purposely hiding a part of yourself from me." "I'm sorry, Shell," she wanted to say, but I continued. "This restaurant is open 24 hours and I have all the time in the world, Meredith, so tell me, who are you really?" It's complicated, Shelley." "No, it's not, Meredith, but you are complicated, and you owe me an explanation. You also have to explain it to James and Mary. We are your family, and we have a right to know who you are." At this point, she broke down and cried quietly. "I've been thinking about what to say to you ever since you left me that message. It seems so trivial now. Give me a moment to gather my thoughts." "Like I said, it's open 24 hours, and I'm in no hurry." A full minute passed before she could continue. "Believe it or not, Shell, I love you more than ever. I'm terribly sorry I hurt you." She paused at this point because I think she expected me to respond, but I sat stone-faced and silent, looking at her, so she continued. "I want to prove my love to you. I want to prove to you that I will do anything to show you if you give me a chance. So before we talk about who I am, I want to tell you what I'm willing to do." At this point, she paused to gather her thoughts, and then, taking a deep breath, she continued. "I want you to give us a chance. If you give me a year to prove my love and commitment to our family, and at the end of that year you still want to divorce me, I won't resist. I will give you everything. I will give you full custody of the kids, and I can visit them any time I want. I won't take half the business. You'll keep the house. No alimony, no nothing. I'll walk away. I promise." I have to admit I didn't expect this turn of events. It made me back off. Now I had to get my act together. I had asked her to be honest, so I had to be honest as well. "To be honest, Meredith, I have no intention of divorcing you at this time. However, I suspect that our relationship will be very different from here on out." I saw her visibly relax, exhaling a long, slow, deep breath. "I don't know where to start, Shell." "How about starting with the wedding vows you wrote and said at our wedding? That seems like an appropriate place." I replied without anger. "I really want to understand what you were trying to tell me. Honestly, I didn't understand them, but now I think I do, or at least I'm starting to understand. Shell, you know how worried I was about losing myself by getting married. I loved you, but I wanted to make sure that I would always be a person first and foremost. I didn't want to lose myself, ever." "I understand that part, Meredith, but what does having sex with other guys have to do with it?" "It wasn't just guys, Shelley," she said, dropping her eyes to the table. "Jesus, Mir!" I exclaimed a little too loudly for the setting. If she was going to scold me for calling her Mir, I was leaving. "Listen to me, Shell. My body is the most individual thing I have. It is mine and mine alone. Deciding who to share my body with is the most intimate thing I have to offer, but that's only part of it. I love life, Shell. I want to experience everything. I want to feel every emotion deep inside me. You know I'm a very sexual person, and I want to feel every sexual emotion. I want to feel love, lust, jealousy, pain, and resentment. I want to feel it all before I get too old." "Okay, Mir, I understand what you're saying, but I don't agree with that. Shouldn't your body be mine, and mine should be yours?" My head seemed about to explode. "If I accept what you're saying, Meredith, shouldn't I have the same privileges? Are you saying that even though I'm married to you, I should be able to share my body with whomever I choose?" "Don't be angry, Shell, but let me ask you a question. Since we've been married, have you ever wanted someone else? Have you needed someone else?" I took a deep breath and had to admit, "No, Mir, you're all I've ever needed or wanted." "That's what this is all about, Shelley, isn't it? Why didn't you tell me all this before you got married? Shouldn't you have at least told me that instead of hiding it? Not to mention what you've been hiding all these years? Yes, I should have told Shell. It was the only unfair thing I did to you, but I did it because I love you so much. We were young and I knew you wouldn't put up with it. And I couldn't lose you, I just couldn't. I know I was being selfish and I'm sorry. I just sat there in a daze. I think I finally realized who she was. Don't you want to ask me? You want to know why you're not enough for me, don't you? You want to ask me if I'm going to stop? Actually, Mir, I'm not going to ask you those questions because they don't matter to me anymore. The biggest question that remains in my mind is, can I live with who you are? I do understand you, Mir. I was talking to a man who explained it all to me. In fact, I was just listening to her explain. She looked surprised, but didn't interrupt. That's the big difference between you and me, Mir. You seem to think you have a choice in everything. You choose who gets this or that part of you and when. You put your wants and needs above all others. You can play different roles whenever you feel like it. But I was never given a choice. I was raised to believe that a real man, sacrifices his personal dreams, wants, and needs for his family. Family always comes first for a man. In all the time we've been together, have I ever given you any reason to doubt that I'll be there for you and the kids? She shook her head sadly and said, Shell, listen to me. I'm all yours. I love only you. Isn't the problem your ego? Stop. Don't you dare say it's my stupid male ego that's getting in your way. Don't you dare belittle my feelings. You have no right to tell me how I should feel. In all the years we've been together, have I ever told you how you should feel? You have to remember that it is the stupid male ego that gives a man the instinct to protect his family. It is the male ego that makes a man sacrifice himself for the good of his family. It is my stupid male ego that makes me comfort you when you are hurting. Can't you see that it is the male ego that is really the soul of a man? Shelley, I didn't mean to call your ego stupid. I just want to make sure it doesn't get in the way of our decision to stay together. I'm sorry I keep saying sorry. We both had a good laugh at that statement. It helped ease the tension, and we decided to hold off on further conversation until we ordered our food. The waitress somehow guessed to sidestep us, and I had to wave her off. In the middle of the meal, Meredith started crying again. You know, Shell, I just realized that this is the booth we were sitting in when I told you I was pregnant with James. I already told you why I chose this place, Mir. I wanted you to realize what you were risking. Are we going to be okay, Shell? I don't know, Mir, but I'm not going to leave you. I'll come home and we'll decide where the hell we're going next. I'm a bitch, I'm a tease, I'm a goddess on my knees. When you're in pain, when you're hurting, I'm your undercover angel. I'm numb, I'm alive, you can't tell I'm not alive. 5 years later. A lot has happened in the intervening 5 years. I've tried to make things work with Meredith, I really have. I agreed to her condition of giving her a year to prove her love for me. And at the end of the year, I sat her down at the table and told her I couldn't do it anymore. We were too different. To her credit, she did her best to prove her love to me and the kids. I never had any doubt that she loved all 3 of us. Did she have sex with other people during the year? I don't know. I assume she did, but I never asked her about it. I reasoned that if I was going to stay with her, I had to put up with her behavior. Maybe I was naive, or maybe I was becoming more of a 21st century guy. Absolutely not. The real reason for the breakup was that I needed my wife to be mine and mine alone, and Meredith could never give me all of herself. She was always holding something back. We both loved each other and always would. We just couldn't live together. It was that simple. When I sat her down to talk to her, of course there were tears, but there was no yelling and screaming. We both knew why it had to be that way. Meredith was true to her word. She offered everything she'd promised. Custody of the kids, the house, the business, everything. But I couldn't do that to her. The divorce was finalized in just a couple months. She had unlimited access to the kids. Although she lived in an apartment I helped her find, we had a spare bedroom that became her room. She could stay in it as often as she wanted. She took advantage of it, especially for the first couple years, but as the kids got older, she started spending more time in her apartment. Now she sometimes stays in her room with her lover when I go out of town. I also drew up a legal contract officially transferring 49% of the business to her. It was the right thing to do. This contract also stipulates that if anything happens to me, she gets 100%. The funny thing is that Meredith comes into the store at least 2 days a week and spins wrenches with the rest of us. She loves doing it, and we love her presence. James and Mary help out sometimes, too. And what's really interesting is that Meredith has a new lover, my office manager, Julie. Julie is much more understanding of Mir's needs than I am. Julie says they are soulmates, whatever that means. The kids have always loved Julie, so that's not a problem. But what about me? I'm not a very social person, so I don't get out much, but you know what? One of Meredith's needs to make her feel complete is me. Julie knows that and doesn't mind. My life is by no means perfect, but it could be a lot worse. After all, I'm a pretty lucky guy.